This has got to be one of the best feel-good stories of track and field in 2025. Donavan Brazier, the 2019 world champion, former American record holder, he's back. It's funny. I, a few years ago, made a video talking about Donavan Brazier's return after the Olympic trials in 2021. It was 2022 when he got back on the track in the indoor season. He was running some 400s. He ran a really nice 600, which was just around 2/10 away from his indoor world record. But really that season didn't amount to much because he was still under the nag of those injuries and he still required all that surgery and rehab. And since 2022 until this year, when he came back with his 144 and his 143 high, and most recently at the London Diamond League, 143.08. Nothing. 2023. You look at his World Athletics profile, just for an example. No races. No races in 2024. And he's obviously a very quiet and reserved guy. That's the way he's always been on social media and elsewhere. And you can't help but just wonder and speculate. I know a few other track content creators made videos during that time span of like, oh, what happened to the world champion? Where is Donavan Brazier? And occasional Let's Run blog posts about that subject matter. I've obviously thought about it a lot because a lot of the earlier videos that I've made on the topic of track and field on my YouTube channel were about the man Donavan Brazier. Of course, that 2021 Olympic trials is the big one that comes to mind, that little race analysis I did. You know, there's a few things that I didn't know then quite about the severity of his injury. And, you know, what can I say there other than what I know and am doing my best to learn about this sport each and every day. But here we are now, and he has just run the fastest time since his world championship run in 2019, when he ran the American record that was then 142.34. That's significant right there because you consider where he was at in 2020, right? I'm going to bring up the Otto Bolden quote. He couldn't wait for the Olympic Games that year, but because of COVID, they had to be postponed. He was dominating the Diamond League then. Of course, he got sixth in this London race, but he was just winning left and right. He got down to a 143.11. I believe that was his season best, if not 0.15. I may not have the decimal correct, but that's significant to consider. You've also got to consider the fact that in his World Championship campaign, 2019, the fastest he had run prior to his Diamond League Zurich victory, where he had that amazing comeback against Nigel Amos back from like 2-3 seconds when Amos went out in like 48 or 9. It was crazy. But Donovan ran 142.70, and that was when the tides really started to turn and people really started to tag him as the favorite for Worlds. But before then, Donovan had never run faster than the time that we had just seen from him there in London, 143.08. That's obviously the big number that we're talking about in present day. But I think even more significant is how he made it happen. Because with the way the 800 meters has become in today's track and field landscape on the men's side, you can find a 141 out of the woodwork these days. Obviously, you've got guys like Emmanuel Wanyonyi, who won this London race in 142 flat, and he's already run a 151 this season. Marco Arop has stated that he has 139 on his mind. Not going to really speak too much on that, but who knows, right? I think he's putting together a solid peak. He made a nice move in the final, I think it was the third 200, yes. That's where he made his move, the Canadian, and just didn't quite have the racing fitness to hold off Wanyonyi in the last 200, but I think he's going to be dangerous. You've obviously got the other Americans, Josh Hoey, Bryce Hoppel, who deserve their own separate videos in their own rights. And you've even got the Algerians like Jamel Sajadi, who's dangerous on any given day. And so Brazier came into this race. Sajadi was not in that race, but the other four guys that I mentioned, 3 of them were, excluding Josh Hoey, the indoor world champion and indoor American record holder, who has just had an incredible season. It's hard to believe that he was not on the Paris team last year with all that he's done. But for Donavan Brazier, just knowing where those guys were at, where the event was at, he did just about everything right that he could have. He went out relatively conservatively, 50.8, which is probably the fastest he's gone out since his 2019 Worlds, his 2021 Olympic trials, when he had that catastrophic heartbreak when he had to shut it down in the last 200 due to his just injuries. It was terrible. But 50.8, that's faster than he went out in that race. So it's clear to see that he can handle that pace again and do it tactically, right? Because there were a lot of guys in front of him. He ultimately finished 6th, in case I've yet to mention. But he just held on and closed in a low 52. That is all you can ask when you're at the stage of the game that Donovan Brazier is at right now. Do I think he is going to be a medal threat for Tokyo? That's an interesting question that I want to lead into coming off of this London race. I think he is an outside threat looking in right now, because you just consider some of the guys I mentioned, right? Emmanuel Wanyoni, Jamel Sajati, Josh Hoey, Bryce Hoppel. Obviously, Hoppel was one spot away from a medal in Paris. Josh Hoey was one spot away from the team at trials. But you've also got to consider the Briton, Max Bergen, who was up there in that race as well. He ran a low 142 for 3rd, a big PB for him, and he's really been crushing it ever since he was in the U20 scene. So there's just so many guys to look out for. And Donovan Brazier spoke about that in his post-race interview. He knows that a 142.34 will not be good enough if the Tokyo men's 800-meter final follows the trend that the 800 is taken. And so what can he do but just keep building upon the fitness that he's got? I think just with the way he executed his first Diamond League final back, stayed nice, calm, cool, and reserved before the gun went off, I think he did just about everything right to reemphasize that point. And I want to speak about another thing that just feels so good about this comeback story, because there's another guy who last year, when Donovan was still nursing his injury, who had the best season since his 2019 campaign when he won the U.S. indoor and outdoor titles in the 1500. You know who I'm talking about? Craig Engels. That's right. Craig, even despite the fact that he had run his fastest time since 2019, he was still well outside of a spot looking in for the Paris final for the 1500, for the Paris men's team for the 1500. I mean, it is more difficult than ever to make a U.S. national team in the mid-distances. But as we've seen from Craig this year, he has only continued to run some solid times. He's dropped to 3:35 pretty recently in the 1500. And back in April at the Brian Clay Invitational, which for those of you that don't know is a pretty high-scale college meet that includes several pros, including Craig Engels this year. I was on the mic when Craig just so happened to be pacing one of the slower intermediate heats of the 5K. I was so excited. It was actually on the Flow Track live preview, so I'm going to leave a link to that down below. But check out this little clip from a little post-race interview we did with Craig.
I'm going to go train with Donovan Brazier in Flagstaff. He's back. The man's back.
So Craig Engels essentially foreshadowed what we're seeing now out of Donovan Brazier, and it just feels so good to see him be proven right about that. Even if Donovan Brazier doesn't make the team, because that's an entire possibility with the likes of Brandon Miller lurking in the shadows, but even if he doesn't make the team, even if he doesn't medal, it's just got to feel so good for him to be back. And he's just got to feel so good about where he's at in life right now, because he also got engaged. And so no matter what happens on the track, it's just so great to see him in the proper headspace. What do you guys think? Do you think Donovan Brazier can make it happen? Pull off another miracle moving forward? We've got USA's coming up in just about a week. Let me know, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Feels good to do another track commentary video. And definitely stay tuned for more episodes of In Full Stride. We've got plenty more coming your way in August. Had to take a bit of a break, but we'll be back just like DB, baby. Peace.